Hey guys, welcome to Matt's Movies, Music and More. I'm your host Matt, and for this week's movie review, I'm going to be talking about the 1987 movie RoboCop, directed by Paul Verhoeven and starring Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Dan O'Herlihy, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferreira, Ronnie Cox, and Ray Wise. The movie itself is one of the greatest action, comedy, drama, sci-fi, horror. It's just got so much going on in the film, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of these movies that I remember seeing as a kid, seeing the video cover because we had it on video in my parents' collection. I think it was released by Virgin Video in the UK, and I'd watched it. Never really understood a lot of the satirical humour of the trailers and the news bits. But as the years have gone on, I've really enjoyed seeing that now, and I think that is one of the highlight hooks to the movie. So anyway, the movie itself is all about the OCP Corporation, Omni Consumer Products, and they deal with this futuristic world in Detroit, Michigan, which is basically on the verge of ruin because finance, Detroit is bankrupt basically. And OCP are trying to figure out a way to get rid of the police and have robots in instead. And the vice president CEO, Dick Jones, played by Ronnie Cox, against type, would you believe, because Ronnie Cox had been famous for playing good guys. This was the first time he'd ever played a bad guy. He comes up with an invention called Ed 209, which is this huge robot. But at a demonstration, however, by accident, it kills one of the junior VPs. So basically, what happens is another partner, Bob Morton, played by Miguel Ferreira, he has come up with a program called RoboCop. And Jones is not happy about it at all. But as that's going on, at the Detroit Police Department, Alex Murphy is transferred in to help out, and a lot of the police are getting understaffed due to a lot of deaths and obviously going on strike. They want more money and more protection and stuff like that. So what happens is Alex is brought in to help with this situation, and he's partnered up with Lewis, who is a police officer as well, played by Nancy Allen, who was famous for being in a couple of Brian De Palma movies, including Carrie, Dress to Kill, and Blow Up. Uh, in fact, Carrie and Blow Up actually both have her with John Travolta, which I think is quite ironic. Hopefully, I will talk about Blow Up in a future video. But anyway, about Robocop, as that's going on, Clarence Boddicker, who is one of the top criminals in Detroit. He and his gang are going out and stealing money and killing people and doing drugs and all this. And as Murphy and Lewis are on the hunt for him, they track him to a derelict factory where they're hiding. And in the process of hunting them down, Murphy is ambushed by the gang and is completely shot to death by all of them brutally. Now, this is a really interesting scene, just like with what happened earlier in the film with the Ed 209 massacre when one of the VPs was killed. Basically, it was heavily edited to get it through the MPAAs because they would have given it an X, which meant they wouldn't be able to get any trailers or advertising, anything like that. So what happened was they had to tone it down significantly. And for many years, the director's cut was not available until I think about 1997 with the release of the Criterion version, which came out on Laserdisc and one of the early DVDs to come out, which at the time was worth quite a lot of money. Now, since it's been redone, all subsequent DVDs and Blu-ray releases of the movie have now got the full director's cut. The original theatrical cut doesn't seem to be included on any of these releases anymore, which is a shame because it would be nice to show the differences. But the gore in this film is pretty shocking, but it's shocking in a really interesting way. So anyway, what happens with Murphy is gunned down brutally, and he's taken back to OCP to be worked on by Bob Morton and his crew, and he is recruited now to be RoboCop, this new invention. So RoboCop is installed at the Detroit Police Department, and he's going around trying to defend crime with his criminal directives, which is serve the public trust, uphold the law, and he also has another directive which I can't remember at this moment in time. I'm trying to remember now. It's wow, I can't remember. Oh well, I can't remember. But yeah, the what happens is whilst it's going on, he's going to like a convenience store to save the proprietors from being robbed by a guy with a gun. He also saves a woman from being raped potentially by two guys, and also stops a guy who was obviously like a politician from taking people hostage. So yeah, RoboCop makes a big difference in a short space of time, and it would go on that after meeting Lewis, walking down in the halls of OCP, she can tell that he's Murphy because of the gun rotation which he'd done earlier in the film, and she tells him that he's Murphy, but he doesn't realize because he's had his brain wiped completely. But it's not until he finds out that there's a crime being committed by one of Clarence Bodica's men, Emil, at a petrol station, that when Emil says, and after Robocop quotes him, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," he's like, "I know you. You're dead. We killed you." So Robocop is recording it and is thinking it over, and he's thinking, that sounds so familiar. So he manages to get Emil and arrest him and stuff, injuring him quite badly. And he finds out through a memory thing, which is quite funny. It's like a pointy thing that comes out of his hand, so it makes it look like he's giving the middle finger. He sticks it into this computer and finds out that Alex Murphy, who was what Lewis called him, that is who he is. So he decides to go to where Alex Murphy lived and checks out the place. And the memories are slowly coming back into his head that he is Alex Murphy. So whilst he's there, he's doing that. And then he goes on to arrest Leon Nash, played by Ray Wise, who's a brilliant character actor, has been in lots of things over the years, and gets him. And later on, also gets Clarence Bodica and the gang when they are taking on a drug dealer, and Bodica actually reveals that he works for Dick Jones. So Robocop actually has it recorded as evidence whilst he's taking on Bodica. So what happens is he goes to talk to Dick Jones to arrest him, but as he tries to do it, he is automatically overridden by his directives, which is called Directive 4, which is not actually revealed until very later in the film. It's a classified directive. Now, it's interesting because obviously Robocop at that time is obviously sort of impaired, and Ed 209 is obviously taking him on and stuff like that. And so Bodica and his gang are going to take on Robocop now. Dick Jones wants him completely taken out of the game. Bob Morton, this has happened slightly earlier in the movie. Bob Morton himself, as Dick Jones cannot stand Bob Morton, Dick Jones hires Clarence Bodica to kill him, even though he was at his apartment with a couple of hookers. He killed him on what looked like a very, very early form of DVD because he puts in a disc to the machine and plays this message left by Dick Jones. And yeah, so poor Bob Morton gets killed. I really like Miguel Ferrera's performance in this film. I thought he was very underrated, and I always followed his career. I mean, sadly, he passed away last year, and I've always thought he was a really, really good actor. But anyway, going back to what happens later on in the movie with RoboCop, there is a big, big takedown of RoboCop and the criminals. So as RoboCop is getting more and more wounded by the police and all that, he has to take refuge in the derelict factories where they were earlier in the film. So I don't want to spoil the whole movie for you, but there's some great action sequences. There's some amazing gore. Uh, One of the characters, Emil, comes out with this real disfigurement after driving a vehicle through an acid toxic waste facility, and he's come out and he's like, the very wise character goes up to him. He's like, "Don't touch me, man." He's like, "Help me." So he's doing all this, and Clarence Boddicker is hilarious as well. The movie itself is one of these great. I suppose you could call it a black comedy, or I mean, I don't even really know what category I can put RoboCop in because I've always assumed it was an action movie because it's got action, but people say it's sci-fi, people say it's horror, people say um, it's a social commentary on what was going on in a Reagan era America. So yeah, it's had a lot of things going for it, and the movie itself has gone on to have a huge legacy over the years because it was such a big hit. The movie itself was made for just $13 million and actually took 53.4 million in the United States. And later on, sadly, Paul Verhoeven didn't come back to do it, but um, the sequel came out in 1991 and was directed by Irwin Kershner, who was the guy that directed The Empire Strikes Back, one of the greatest sequels of all time. And you also had RoboCop 3, which came out in 1993, which was a Canadian production directed by Fred Decker, the writer of The Monster Squad. So you had that. And Peter Weller played RoboCop in RoboCop 2, but not RoboCop 3. RoboCop 3, he was played by Robert John Burke, who would be later famous for playing in the film Dust Devil and Stephen King's Spinner. Now, Lewis, played by Nancy Allen, is the only character to appear in all three movies of the main characters. Although, saying that, you also have another character who is another one of the VPs that is also in the film. He also appears, I think, in all three too. I can't quite remember his name. But they did that. They also did a TV series, which was made by a Canadian company, which only lasted one series. As well as that, they had cartoon series. They had computer games, RoboCop games. They had RoboCop versus Terminator, the comics and the computer games as well. And they also had this huge collection of toys. I did recall having a RoboCop toy when I was a kid. I can't quite remember what happened to it, but I think I had one. So yeah, RoboCop's had a huge cultural impact in Hollywood, and the social commentary and satirism of like the trailers and all that would later go into another Verhoeven movie, which is the 1997 movie Starship Troopers, which I also love. It's a great movie. So yeah, with RoboCop, it's one of those ones that it is an absolute classic. I just absolutely love it. It got a remake made, I believe, in 2014. I think I'm just going to double check to confirm that. Yes, it was in 2014 that RoboCop got a sequel, and badly underperformed. It's an okay movie, but when you compare it to the original RoboCop, it's nowhere near as good. But it's an okay film. It's just nothing special. It's better than RoboCop 3. Let's put it that way. But anyway, guys, that was my RoboCop review. The film itself is available on streaming websites as well as Blu-ray and DVD. I would definitely suggest pick up the Blu-ray release, which is in the UK is available as the RoboCop trilogy, which features all three RoboCop movies. And yeah, so that's the end of my review for this video. So again, what did you think? Leave some comments, give me a like, see what you can recommend me to do movie wise. Be sure to share this and follow my channel on the official Facebook, the Twitter, the YouTube, the Instagram, and also we have a Patreon site which I've also set up as well. And I hope, fingers crossed, with your help, you might be able to help me with maybe new equipment or something like that, or suggestions and ideas for potential videos that I could do in the future. Um, the list goes on. I mean, if you know what I can do to improve things, I would love to hear from you. So anyway, guys, thank you very much, and fingers crossed, see you guys very soon. All the best.